welcome in, along with former Wolverine Jerry Diorio, who you see on the screen. I'm Dennis Fithian. We are ready to talk Michigan football on this Father's Day weekend. Jerry with a big smile on his face. That's a good start. Jerry, how are you? Oh, Jerry froze up. I thought, hey, Jerry just had a big smile on his face. I was just talking with him, and then now here he is with a still shot, but it's a good still shot because he is just smiling over there. We'll see if we can pick him up here in a second. We were just talking for 5 minutes coming on about the show, and then here we went. So it's kind of interesting that he is not ready to go. He'll come back, and we'll see him in a minute. I'll tell everybody what we are going to be talking about. There he is. Jerry, how are you? And then he froze up again. Try it again, Jerry. And let's say, boom, there he is, Jerry. And Jerry. And we'll see. I don't know. Wave your hands backstage, Jerry. Can you hear me? Let's see. And no, Jerry. Pretty wild how that is going. Well, this is what we are going to talk about. We are going to hit on keys to the season. Both Jerry and I have come up with 3 different keys for the season, and we'll give those to you. We'll see if you agree or not. It's the off season, as you know, and there are a lot of folks that are looking for things to talk about. And because you have a 12-team playoff, and because you now have divisionless SEC and a divisionless Big Ten, the chance that you could have a repeat game, you could play the same team twice, like let's say Michigan and Ohio State, would that water down? How much would that water down the Michigan-Ohio State game? We'll see what you think of that. We'll have our opinions, but we will start with the commitment, and we'll connect with Jerry if we are able to. If not, we'll just have to forge ahead as we move on. Yeah, I see him moving there. Jerry, happy Father's Day.
Happy Father's Day to you too, Denny, and all the fathers out there listening to us. It's great to be a Michigan Wolverine. I hope I don't fade out again, Denny, and we might have a little bit more connection here than we need.
Hey, you sound great now. We'll take you while we can get you. Jerry, it's fascinating when it comes to recruiting because Michigan has just picked up commitment number 7 in Kainoa Winston, a safety out of D.C., Gonzaga Catholic D.C., and he's a good one. It says 3 stars from Rivals, which is true. He just got a bump from Rivals. I am told by other recruitniks that Winston is regarded even higher by almost everyone else. So this is an outstanding land. I could probably explain it to you, but for people that don't follow recruiting, it'd be like they might want to delve deeper into it. When you lose a big-time recruit that you're going after, it hurts way more than it probably should, to be honest. There's so many fish in the sea. But when you land a recruit, it makes everybody really happy for a time period, probably happier than they should be. So I don't know. I just roll with the punches, Jerry. What do you think of Kainoa Winston?
Low the highs and high the lows, right, Denny? Sometimes a win isn't as good as a win as it seems, and sometimes a loss isn't as bad as it seems. This young man, it shows that Michigan is addressing some of the places where we're going to need some help right away. And I think it's safety. This has added depth for our defensive secondary, something we need very badly right now. And I'm not talking about the corners or anything. We lost some serious talent at the safety position, and getting this young man out of DC, it would be a nice pickup. It would be a real nice pickup.
John weighing in on Rivals evaluation, saying that they need to update their ranking. The other services have him as a top 50 or at worst top 100 player. maybe they will make that adjustment. So as we sit here right now, it's a nice land. Don't scrunch up your nose and say, oh, he's just a 3-star. He's considered to be, I would say, probably a 4-star. And when I have not watched his film, but I saw Trevor McHugh weighing in that, he could be like what Michigan has done here in recent years with the safety position, with a versatile safety, or you would maybe even call him a nickel, like somebody like Dax Hill, like John had indicated, and Mike Sainris still. I think you could also put Rod Moore into that category. Rod Moore, I think, was a 3-star coming out.
Exactly. That was my point. That was what I was talking about, where I was going to go, Denny. If I'm not mistaken, Sandstill was a 3-star. I'm pretty sure Rod Moore was a 3-star. So, again, it goes back to those stars not really being a tell-all and end-all of what we should expect from these players. I mean, you've got a discrepancy here. Some people are calling him a 3-star. Some are calling him a 4-star. We just got a good young player right now. A nice size, 6 foot, 180 pounds. Plays in a very competitive football arena in Washington, D.C. That Washington, D.C. area, Northern Virginia, that is some very sound football. So we're getting this young man. Great feather in Coach Moore's hat right now.
Yeah, and Michigan did start slow. Remember, Jim Harbaugh left on January the 24th, and then, there was going to be a little bit of an adjustment there, but up to 7 commitments now. I think I don't know about smart people, but there were people saying, hey, well, let's see how, and not that everybody wanted to hear that. Let's see what happens with June before you start panicking or anything like that. I don't know. The safety at Tampa. Are we talking about the Antoine Winfield Jr.? Maybe Jordan Whitehead, maybe, whatever. So that's what the safeties are at Tampa. That's what Corey's saying is Jordan Whitehead. He does play as a safety at Tampa. So there's some comps that people are coming up with. And here is Kine, who says, getting some great news on the recruiting trail here lately, aren't we? Any insight on who might be the next domino to fall? Yeah, we're always looking for the next one. Well, there's a few guys on that are visiting this weekend, and they just did get Jalen Williams, and I was going to say him, but of course he has just committed, so it wouldn't be him. I'll see if I can come up with who would be likely to be next. I'll see as we sit here if I could come up with one. Jerry, here are the 7 commitments. All of these guys by Rivals are listed as 4 stars. And then, of course, Winston, we've just talked about, who might be undervalued by Rivals because everyone else has him ranked a lot higher. So 7 players, and all these guys, I think if you're a Michigan fan, you're excited about all of them. Then you're going to get a class, and sometimes you're like, yeah, I don't know about this guy. Why did they take him? I don't think you say that about any of these guys. I think each and every one you say, oh, I know exactly why Michigan's taking him, and they all could be stars, for the team. So this is a great 7, a magnificent 7 for Sharon Moore and company and what they have.
Well, everybody getting all upset about Nathan Marshall last week going to Auburn. Denny, a lot will shake it out at the end of the season. It's amazing how when a team wins at the end of the season, beating their rival, where people start to now commit to that school. So, there's a long way to go between now and final recruiting and signature days and all that good stuff. There's a lot that's going to go on. A lot of football these young men have to play. A lot of football they're going to be watching to see if where they're going to fit in. So we got a ways to go.
Yeah, as you were talking, the Michigan is recruiting 3 players from one high school in Las Vegas. 2 offensive linemen, U2, who's a 5-star. He's one of the top players in the country. And then a guard, your position, Jerry, who is also very highly thought of on the offensive line. And then there's a wide receiver from that same high school, who is a 4-star named Derek Meadows. And I don't know, Meadows is like a Michigan Notre Dame, but Meadows, I kind of feel like I could put in, not a future cast. That's what the pros do on the Maize and Blue review. I put a forecast in. I'm kind of feeling like a forecast for Meadows if, you're pressing me. And it seemed like a Kine was pressing me because he wanted insight on who might be the next guy to fall. That is my pick. And I think it would be good for a lot of reasons. One, getting a highly rated wide receiver is good for Michigan, especially because there's a lot of teams that negative recruit Michigan for wide receiver because they say, why would you want to go there? They just run the ball. But you get a highly rated guy like that, you're thinking, hey, this kid wants to come in, and sure, he's not coming in just to block, but you also think that he's that Michigan may be thinking about, they're not just lining up. It's not just all the second half of Penn State, I guess.
Corey, thanks for the shout out there, Corey. I appreciate that, Corey G. Let me, Denny, if I remember correctly, Bo Schembechler used to run the ball a lot. And and if I remember correctly, Anthony Carter ended up coming to Michigan and having a pretty good career in that running offense. Okay. I'll tell you why there is a real desire to go to Michigan as a receiver with that strong running game. That means now you might be in a position where you're more one-on-one with corners because you've got to have safeties come down and start filling the run. And so these guys, and they're being taught all week, run. We got to fill run. We got to fit run. We got to hit run, okay? And then all of a sudden, you're putting somebody on an island one-on-one. Look at what Johnson did to Ohio State a couple of years ago. Look at some of the great wide receiver performances we've had against Ohio State. So they're that run offense derailing wide receivers coming here. I don't buy that. I'm not buying it. I think there's a lot of opportunities for receivers that really do well at Michigan because of the situation that run game puts them in.
Yeah, I also think, players are looking towards the NFL, and you look at the teams that have success in the NFL, the Lions, they hang their head on grit, and they had a top 5 offense last year. And sure, they were ranked number 2 in the passing department, but they were top 5. They were number 4 in running the football, and they had a pretty good combination in Gibbs and David Montgomery. And the team that went to the Super Bowl out of the NFC, they got Christian McCaffrey. So smash and run. You can do both. I think when people do look at Michigan, they're just saying, oh yeah, they're just going to be smashed. They're just going to be like the second half against Penn State. I think it was good that JJ went in the first round at 10 overall. You can say, hey, here's a quarterback. You can just throw 15 times a game. I do think we'll see how it works, with Alex Orji. He's, as we just look at him right now, talking on June 14th, we know that he's an explosive runner, a developing passer. But Jerry, the 2 quarterbacks that they are looking at, they've got Carter Smith, who I put on this list here. He is a dual threat out of Florida. But the 2 guys that they are looking at, Brady Hart is one of them. He's a pro-style QB. That's the guy that they want. So it's not like they're just going after what you would say, athletic or just dual threat. I mean, they're looking at a, total pocket passer. So,
hey, I've always said this: you are who you are, and if Michigan has that unique situation where they can entertain quarterbacks that are more athletic and run the ball, but also can entertain quarterbacks that can pocket pass. I mean, we've graduated the greatest of all time, Tom Brady. Okay, we've had Henning. We had some great pocket passers, and we've also had some great running quarterbacks. Robinson, kid by the name of Steve Smith that I played with way back when. Demetrius Brown. We've had plenty of quarterbacks do one or the other, and our system seems to fit both of them.
Yeah, and to your point, when you went back to Bo, and you say you are what you are, Bo really did love running the football, and he had the it was attached to him. I don't know if he said that, you throw the football and four things can happen and three of them are bad. I don't know. Did he say that, Jerry, or is that just
I think it was Woody that said it. Three things happen when you throw the ball. Two of them are bad. One was an incomplete. One's an interception.
Okay. Yeah, but and Bo, of course, was his protege, and then, but even when you had Lloyd Carr, at Michigan, Carr, I can remember where you would ask Carr, hey, he would say, look, I like throwing the football, I like it, but we're gonna run the ball or we're gonna die trying. He was saying that, and then Jim Harbaugh broke that out.
Denny, I'm just thinking about it right now. I think what really turned Michigan's tide on quarterbacks was when we went from Rick Leach in '78, and then we're trying to find our option quarterback to emulate what Rick did for those 4 years that Michigan had great teams. And we ended up with Johnny Wangler leading us to a Rose Bowl. And I think that opened up a lot of our eyes here in Michigan, Bo, Moeller, Lloyd Carr, that we can go after those pocket-type passers, go after the receivers, and have a strong run game without utilizing the option. And so I think that's, I think that's kind of where it kind of started with Wangler opening everybody's eyes up around here that we can run the ball and still have a pocket-type presence throwing the ball.
I would agree with that. That just kept going up, and then Harbaugh really, I think, Jim Harbaugh took it to a next level.
Absolutely. And when you look at Jim Harbaugh, when you look at Harbaugh as a quarterback,
yeah,
I mean, I don't know if there's ever been a more dual threat quarterback at Michigan than Jim Harbaugh, because even though JJ is commented on as being the best quarterback of all time, I don't know. And JJ could run. I'm not saying that JJ couldn't run. We just chose not to run him. But remember, when Harbaugh was there, Bo chose to run him, and Bo chose to throw the ball with him. So I think Harbaugh was, if not one of the top three dual threat quarterbacks we've ever had.
I thought you were going to say that you would take Jim Harbaugh over any other Michigan quarterback if you were building a team. I thought that's where you're going.
To the edge, didn't I, Denny?
You did take me right there. I was ready for it.
I went to the edge, but I wasn't going to go over.
Okay. Steve is down in South Carolina, and he's saying, what's up? Steve, a verbal commitment for South Carolina, Shamari Earls is making the rounds in Ann Arbor this week. So some good karma that you're coming in from South Carolina with one of those Gamecock commits coming in. Jerry, what were you? You 305 as a guard for Michigan, 295?
Okay, funny story, Denny. I came into Michigan. I weighed, I think it was 256 as a freshman coming in. By the end of 2 days, I was down to 220. That's a true story. I went from 250, 255 down to 220, 225 in my first 2 days. And when I came back my sophomore year, believe it or not, I weighed in at 225 and started 4 games and alternated in 8 of them. So in 8 games. So it was a dual, a sub starter, I would say, my sophomore year. My junior year was 235, and I got up to an amazing 245 by my senior year. How's that, Corey?
245.
245 was my big weight playing at Michigan.
What about the rest of the guys in the line? Were you
that's where I was going to go next, Denny. That's not saying that we didn't have 300-pounders. Remember, I was playing next to Big Ed, Moransky, and Bubba Paris, and they had to put pennies underneath the scale to get it down to 305. Okay, so they were pushing 320, 325. No, they ain't BSing me on that one. I know they were over 320. I guarantee you that. Becker was every bit of 290, 285. George Loja, maybe one of the best centers of all time at Michigan. He had been going 275, 280. So even though I was down there around 245, we still had, and Michigan was one of the few places that did have the 300-pounders. So it's always kind of starts at Michigan and then moves on from there.
But you were in the weight room. You were taking a back seat to Bubba Paris, right? you're pushing up as much weight as those guys.
I could hang with them a little bit. I could hang with them.
I have not been able to verify this, but GB Fly Eagles Fly is saying that Quincy Porter, who's supposed to be visiting Michigan right now, he says that just lost him to, he's calling him the Yuck Eyes. He was a 4-star wide receiver from New Jersey. So let's keep an eye on that one. You might be right. Let's wait and see on that one. Thomas is talking about the Oregon game being harder than Texas. Dylan Gabriel being better than Quinn Ewers. He wants to know, do you agree with that? Dylan Gabriel better than Quinn Ewers?
No, I don't agree with that. And Manning might be the best of the three.
Yeah, well, I think that's a good one. I like causing a little controversy or starting a little controversy talking about Arch for Texas. I really like Quinn Ewers. Not that he didn't play at Ohio State, but 2 years ago when they hosted Texas, I thought he looked fabulous in that game. Gabriel, who's a 6th-year quarterback, we're talking about the top returning quarterbacks in the country. So we're splitting hairs. Beck would probably be 1. I would put Gabriel at 2, but right behind him, I would put Quinn Ewers. So we're talking about, 2 of the top 3 quarterbacks. Who do you want? I would take Gabriel over Ewers, but just by a little bit, and so it's not too bad. I mean, you're talking about, star players.
And Gabriel, if I'm not mistaken, they, beat Texas last year, correct?
That's true. That is true.
But going into Tuscaloosa and beating Alabama with Nick Saban on the sidelines, that's a tough one to overcome. That's a tough one to beat.
Thomas throwing his keys in. That's good. We'll get to some of those. I want to go to this though next. I've got 2 things. First, I want to tell everyone we're going all through recruiting and talking about visiting and everything else. The way to get to know everything up to speed right now and what's happening is by going to the Maize and Blue Review, and you can join up today. You can join up right now. Go to michigan.rivals.com. You think we're having fun here all day, all night, over on the Den, breaking out topics, looking at Michigan from every single direction that you possibly can. That's what's going on over on the Maize and Blue Review. So join up by going to michigan.rivals.com. Jerry, this week I was listening to a college football podcast, and they were lamenting the possibility of teams playing 2 times. That you could play 3 times in a season. We've got a podcaster who put a tweet up this week who said his personal Michigan-Ohio State rematch conundrum, he calls it. The game is over 115 years old. The Big Ten championship game isn't even 15 years old. My mind simply won't allow me to place more importance on the rematch than the original. One is a man-made cash grab while the other is an institution. All right. Well written there by Josh. Now Jerry, who played in the Michigan-Ohio State series. Jerry, once, twice, 3 times. Do you see the point? What about the possibility of watering down the Michigan-Ohio State game?
I don't think there's any way you water down the Michigan-Ohio State game. When Michigan and Ohio State play football in November, it's a big deal. Or in December, it's a huge deal. It's always going to be. And I don't think playing multiple times in the season is going to deter that. However, what I really would like to see it, if we're going to play Ohio State twice, I'd like to see it in the playoffs. Not so much in the Big Ten, in the Big Ten round robin. I would like to see the Big Ten split up, kind of like we've been in the last couple of years, where we have an East and West or North and South or whatever, and so the one group would play the other group in the Big Ten championship. I would like to see a little bit more competitiveness on the West side. But I would like to see that divide where you have two sets of Big Ten teams and then them meeting at the end. I don't see watering. I don't see how you water down Michigan Ohio State. I think it's always going to be the greatest rivalry in sports. Always will be. Duke and North Carolina, they'll play 3-4 times a year sometimes in basketball. So I mean, that happens. They're going to play they're going to play twice in the season, once in the tournament, and then maybe once in the NCAA tournament, March Madness. So, and it's still what they think is the greatest basketball rivalry in college sports. So, no, I don't think Michigan, Ohio State playing 3 and 4 times a year is going to water down the rivalry. It's just going to make it stronger. I would just like to see a little bit more division between the Big Ten, so we have an east, a west, a north, or south, whatever you want to do, playing at the end, and then going to the playoffs from there. And I think that would actually help the Big Ten teams get more teams in to the playoffs as well.
Nice point on Duke, North Carolina. I feel the same as you. Now, the focus is on Michigan, Ohio State. Last year, actually, that's what would have happened if there were no divisions. They would have played again. And as we talked about last year, it was the last time that was going to happen because we knew that there weren't going to be any divisions. So it's kind of nice. Last year was so great because of the national championship. You talk about retiring Nick Saban and beating Alabama and beating Ohio State. And the last time that it was going to be just like that, that's also special. But if I'm looking ahead, if it happens every single year, well, the Big Ten is getting their 2 brand schools in the biggest rivalry game at the end of the year, and they're getting into a championship game. I don't think that's going to lose the luster at all. Certainly the championship games are just money grabs, but when you look at what it means, you have the ability to not only beat Ohio State once, but you could beat them twice. And what's going to be at stake is right now you have a 12 team. The top 4 teams get a bye. It doesn't mean everything, but a bye is a pretty big deal. And Jerry, if you tell me if you're losing that game and if you're losing twice and you still get in the playoff, you're going to be playing on the road in the first round of the playoff while the other team is getting a bye. That's a pretty gigantic reason to, put your all into the game. And when you go through it once or twice, people are going to be all about it. And, even if we weren't, like, we're on the Maize and Blue Review, you played at Michigan. So yeah, we're going to be talking about Michigan, but if Michigan has to play Ohio State and people are getting tired of it, we're not going to be tired of it. That means Michigan's going to the playoff. Michigan's playing for the Big Ten championship. That means the beat goes on and things are going to be great. So I'm looking forward to it. I think it's awesome. I do think that if there was a situation like, let's say this year that Alex Orji slipped in the tub, the couple days before the Ohio State game this year, and you're thinking that maybe he's like 60, 70%, would you put in a situation where you feel like you would rest him for the last game and have him, where you felt like the rest would really bump him up to maybe 90%, so that could be a wrinkle that could happen, but you're not going to throw that game, or you're not going to be resting players because you want to, have them for the Big Ten championship game because it's going to mean more. You're definitely going to want to win that first one because then you can win the second one and get yourself one of those buys.
What about this, Denny? What if they split? What if we split with Ohio State?
Yeah.
Okay, they're 12-1, we're 12-1. Who goes?
Who goes to the Big Ten?
Who gets to buy?
Well, you get an automatic bid if you win the Big Ten. So I think in this case,
the Big Ten what? The Big Ten
championship game is going to be worth more than the regular season game because, just as I'm talking here and thinking about it, you're going to get the final win and you get that automatic bid. So I would think if you have exact records and you split, I would think that if there was going to be a bye in that situation, it would be by winning the Big Ten championship. I would think that.
It's going to be interesting. It's going to be, again, it goes back. Okay, what if this happens, Denny?
Yeah.
We beat Ohio State and Columbus. They come back and beat us in Indianapolis the next week, but they got 2 losses and we got 1.
Well, yeah, then I would think that Michigan would be getting the bye in that case. What if what if it was the other way around and Michigan had 2 losses and Ohio State had 1, but Quinn Ewers sprained his ankle, and as we saw, like with Florida State, with their quarterback being out, would they then push Michigan and give them the bye? I think all those things. I mean, you're still having a committee. You get the automatic bids, but they're going to take all these kind of things into account.
We still got the bureaucracy, huh?
Well,
absolutely, got it. Yeah, I got it, Denny. I understand it. It's just like Dennis Franklin. His shoulders separated, so he's not going to be as big a threat against Stanford. So we're going to send Ohio.
Yeah, I hear you. Hey, I'm really glad to see Richard on here. Richard says, "Good afternoon, all. Go Blue." Richard, during the season, you can almost count on him like clockwork that he's going to be here talking about Michigan going 13-0, 12-0, 14-0, 15-0. But it's like maybe he's a teacher and he's just taking the summer off or something. But, now he's back. Richard, it is good to see you. Richard asking a question, Jerry. Why is Michigan being overlooked? Why no respect? Do you feel like Michigan is being overlooked, Jerry?
Well, I like the position we're in. Put everybody else ahead of us. It's not where you start, it's where you finish. Okay. Bo's best team, his comments in his book was not ranked in the top 20 in the preseason in 1980. We did not play Notre Dame on national television because ABC felt like Notre Dame had 3 better opponents than Michigan that year to put on TV. So everything shakes out the way it's going to shake out anyways. Just let it play out. I like being overlooked. I like where we're at. Okay, go ahead. Tell everybody that Ohio State's defense is better than ours. Start them off that way. Beautiful. Go for it. Because at the end of the day, that's what matters. What happens at the end of the season? Right now, all this preseason stuff, all this preseason heist, nice to talk about, good, all well to talk about and all that good stuff. At the end of the day, we're going to have to play each other, and we're going to find out then.
Yeah, and I think to your point, anybody else's, if we're all thinking about how they would be ranked, I would rank Georgia number 1, back as the best quarterback and the returning quarterback, and what Georgia has. So you'd put them 1. Ohio State does have, I know, like it doesn't matter because they always seem like they have a lot of talent. It doesn't mean that Michigan can't beat them, but we see their transfer quarterback coming in, and they have more talent than everybody out there. So Ohio State should be up there. We just talked about Dylan Gabriel. We just talked about Quinn Ewers. Those 4 teams should be the top 4 teams in the country. I don't know why. If you put Penn State because you think, well, Penn State's going to have it easy because they don't have to pay Michigan, and so they have an easier road. It depends how yourself personally, how you order up teams in the preseason, but it's not that the preseason doesn't matter. But if Michigan, let's say they are number 10 and Texas is number 3, and that's how it shakes out on September the 7th, if Michigan beats Texas, then that should just flip-flop. Michigan should be a top 3 team by week 3. And so you're off and going. And not only is Michigan playing Texas, but as you know, they're playing USC at Washington. They got Oregon. It doesn't matter where Michigan's ranked. Michigan could be ranked 25. And if they go through and start knocking these teams off, they're going to rise quickly. That's why, Jerry, when we get to – go ahead.
I will say this, though, Corey. I agree with you 100%. I've always been the guy who says you got to knock off number 1 before you can go on top of them. And so – okay, fine. You want to put Georgia, but I don't think there's anybody that should be ranked above us right now, with the maybe exception of Georgia. The fact of the matter is we're the defending national champions, and we probably have the best defense in the country. With that said, I'll take my chances every week.
I think there are people that vote either coaches or people in the media that subscribe exactly to what you're saying. You're the champ until somebody knocks you off.
Until somebody knocks you off, you are the champ. I mean, there's a lot of teams that have lost a tremendous amount and come back in some. Georgia a couple years ago. Remember all the talent they lost when they first won the national title? Remembered all that? That was a star-studded team. That was kind of like what we just replaced this year. Okay? And what do? They come back, reload, and win another one right behind it. So just because a team loses some key players, and you win a national title, you've proven yourself to be up there.
Yeah, I just went through the 4 teams. I for sure wouldn't put Michigan in front of Bama. I'm sorry, not Bama. Georgia, Ohio State.
I don't know about that, Danny. I mean, hey, listen. Ohio State's had plenty of talent. You got C.J. Stroud and half the NFL at the wide receivers, and we went down there and whooped them.
Okay.
So I'm not saying that. They got all the talent in the world. That's fine. We've beaten them the last 3 years. That's what's on the books right now.
Yeah.
So for them to be ranked ahead of us, I think you're gambling.
All right. For me, I also look at just Michigan losing their entire offense, and with the exception of Loveland, and having to break in a new quarterback who's thrown one pass. To me, those are big things that I'm looking at. But here's
Ohio State's got the same problem up front, Denny. They got a huge problem up front. Their defensive line destroyed that offensive line this year in the spring game, and they were playing two-hand tag. So that tells you something about their offensive line. They got issues up front.
Jerry, that's a good point. That I'll give you a ring of the bell on that one. Even Urban Meyer at halftime's like, this offensive line's an issue. So if you got Herbs saying that, you are right. My 3 keys, if Michigan beats Texas, all this stuff about, Michigan shouldn't be up there with Oregon and Texas and Ohio, so that's all out the window. They beat Texas. It's on. They're up into the top 3. They are ready to defend the national championship. I believe that they could beat anybody if they're able to beat Texas. So that's why I am really zeroing in on that Texas game. I know you can make an argument that the Big Ten games are much more important, not a non-conference game, but my idea is the key to the season is beating the Longhorns because it's going to open up everything for this team. A key, too, is the quarterback position and developing Alex Orji. He doesn't have to be, the greatest.
No, he doesn't. No, he doesn't. No, he doesn't.
And what's going to help him is a top-notch offensive line. If they can do that, and this is what, there are some programs that reload. Jerry, in Michigan on the offensive line over these last 3 years, this has not been the same offensive line. It has been different. And they have been able to plug guys in there, and they have been able to step up, and they have been able to smash for Jim Harbaugh and Sharon Moore. And now for Sharon Moore. So, those are the 3 keys that I have. Texas, developing Orji, and offensive line play. What about you?
Beating Texas is huge. If we beat Texas, I don't think there's any way you can have us below 2 until we get beat.
All right.
Orji at quarterback, I think we need to develop him, but I also think we need to develop a system that's going to make him successful. And if that means running the ball and running quarterback power with a lead blocker from the backfield, then so be it. But that's a weapon. That's another weapon. Our offensive line, I think our offensive line is going to be solid. I want to see our DB, our secondary, shine this year. I think if our secondary comes and does the job it did last year, I don't see anybody beating us. I really don't. I think our defense might be better than last year, actually, to be honest with you. And all the talk about one starter coming back, I mean, come on, folks. Let's be honest here. We got Donovan Edwards. He would start on anybody else's team. He started for Michigan his sophomore year, the second half or last part of the season. He's a starter, no doubt about it. You can't say he's not a starter. To say Prevey comes in from Northwestern. He's not. He's got experience. He's played in those big games. Look at all the experience we have coming back in the offense. Just because we don't have starters per se. We got plenty of people that were in that starting rotation and saw plenty of action. So I think our offensive line is going to be very good. I want to see our defensive secondary come together early, and because we've had injuries, okay, in the secondary. So we really do have a secondary issue right now, in my opinion. I want to see our secondary come through. I want to see our offense. I think our offensive line is going to be dominant. And if we beat Texas, I don't think there's anybody that should be ranked ahead of us except for maybe Georgia from that point on until we lose. And I'm going to say one other thing, Denny, that everybody's talking about, that Michigan's schedule is so tremendously more difficult than it was last year. Let me tell you something. We don't play Rutgers this year. Rutgers could be one of the better teams in the Big Ten. They've got – Shiano is right where he wants to be, where he was the first time he coached at Rutgers. Rutgers is going to be a good football team. We don't play Penn State. That's another team that's going to be challenging for the Big Ten. Washington, I think, is down. USC coming into our place. I don't think they're ready for us right now. So with all this, all this talk about our schedule, and the other thing that the people aren't looking at for our schedule, I don't know if you realize this, Denny. We got Indiana and Northwestern before Ohio State, and between Indiana and Northwestern, we have a bye.
Correct.
So that means we have a bye before Northwestern and Ohio State. That is a beautiful position to be in.
I like it. So out of those keys, that secondary coming together, you really want to see that. I like it. And, you sound like you agree with the Texas game being a key. And there we go.
Offensive line. Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Well, I like it. I think you're going to agree. Jim Scarcelli, we were talking about, the toughest games. He thinks Michigan's second toughest game this year is going to be at Washington and not Oregon, not Texas. He thinks at Washington. Tough place to play, tough stadium, and going on the road to the West Coast. Traditionally tough for Michigan. He puts them at number 2. A little bit different. I would put both Oregon and Texas in front of Washington, but there it is. Do you have any thoughts there?
I have it as Ohio State being the most important game. The next most important game is Texas and then Oregon. After that, Oregon's coming into our place week 8. Who knows what the weather's going to be like? They're coming into to the big house. I like our chances in that game. I like our chances with Texas coming into the big house. They're going to be coming in with new offensive line starters, new defensive line starters into 111,000 people. That's a different place to play. I mean, they're going to have their issues. I agree with Jim. Jim is right. Washington is one tremendously hard place to play. Denny, I've talked to other people. I came out of that game, and that's the only game I really came out of where I had a headache. And I don't believe
when you played. You talking about when you played?
Yes, and okay. I don't believe it was from the pounding, because I talked to a couple other people that went up to Washington and did not play and came back with the same headache I had. That place rocks. Those fans are nuts up in Seattle, and I agree with that. My thing is, I think Washington is down this year. I like Fish. He's a great coach, but I think he's not ready this year. I think they lost way too much. And, year 2, year 3, I think he's going to be right there. But I think Washington has lost a little bit too much.
Well, Jerry, it wasn't for me playing football, but I had a headache when I went to Washington too. And it wasn't Jed fish. I was eating fish at that fish market you saw where they throw the fish and they go down and all the different shops in the bazaar. But then there was also a bar down there, and we hit that one pretty hard. The next day, man, I was thinking, wow, my head really hurt too, but had nothing to do with the football game.
Nope.
Great job, Jerry. Is there any stone that we've left unturned here for you?
No, Danny, next week I'm going to talk a little bit about some of the teams that we play, and like I did last week with USC. Next week I want to talk a little bit about Minnesota. Flick is coming into his year where he's got to do something. And so I think there's a lot of excitement up there, and we play them right after we play USC in the opening Big Ten game. So next week we'll talk a little bit about Minnesota.
Great job. Always a pleasure to talk with you, and we are looking forward to next week already. Happy Father's Day weekend to all, and that includes you, Jerry. Have a great weekend.
Happy Father's Day to all you fathers out there. I want to give a shout out. Last Friday was John Gindia's birthday, and I forgot to mention it. Happy birthday, Haas. And yesterday it was John Arbesnick's birthday. Happy birthday, Flame. Just want to throw that out to you.
Happy birthday, guys. All right, Jerry, we'll talk with you next week.
Happy Father's Day. Hail to the victors.
Hail to the victors from Jerry. Smash that like button, and we enjoy those 5-star comments on the pod, and we will see you over